Welcome to the Shame Free Zone. I'm Veronica Monet, and my guest is Carly Coe. She's a friend and a colleague, and she and I have met here before. But we're going to be talking about something very different than what we've talked about in the past. We're going to be actually talking about the Akashic Records, and she may actually be able to bring us some information that's pertinent to our lives right now, today, and to you personally. So I hope you'll stay tuned. Carly, welcome to the Shame.
Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you for bringing this beautiful, sacred opportunity for us to connect more deeply to ourselves, to each other, and to the universe. I would like to share with the viewers just a little bit about you. I want you to know that Carly Coe is a somatic movement therapist, and she's also an Akashic record. I think you actually say that Akashic record channeler, and she's a proud mom too. And she has a very interesting history. So she went from a street performer as a fire juggler and then wound up becoming a fashion model and a television actress. And of course, she didn't stop there. She went on to become a masseuse and work with our bodies and our spirits in ways that are really profound. She has literally walked into the rooms of her deepest fears, and she is led by a higher knowing, one that is in communion with nature and all beings. She recognizes herself as a part of all, which of course you are as well. So, Carly, I am coming at this conversation as somebody who doesn't know that much about the Akashic Records, obviously, because I mispronounced it. And I sometimes have some mixed feelings about it. It's a term that I've heard in the metaphysical world, which I consider myself a part of, but I've never really had an Akashic channeling. I haven't even known if I buy into the concept. And I definitely buy into you and your gifts, though. So I'm hoping you can kind of help me understand what it is. First of all, so we start at the elementary level. I'm sure we have some people tuning in right now who know exactly what it is. That's how they found us. But if you could help us just with a little bit of a summary of what does it even mean? What does it refer to?
Okay, so if I give the more vocabulary meaning, Akashic is actually tapping into an Akasha, the Akasha, which is this ethereal layer of energy. Because I'm really bad at explaining something in a very scientific form, first, I feel like what comes up for me is just kind of acknowledging the same doubts that I had in the beginning around the Akashic Records, in the sense I heard about the Akashic Records twice in the same week. I'd never heard of them in my entire life. And the person who spoke to me about it said, "Hey, this is a friend. I have a friend who reads the Akashic Records. Do you want to do a reading?" And I was like, okay. I do want to kind of develop my psychic powers a little bit, because I was noticing I was getting a lot of intuitive readings from people's bodies when I'd give them massages.
Right.
And I had no idea what it is. Either I looked it up, I was like, oh my God, everybody's website is purple with crystals everywhere. And I was like, yuck, hippie stuff, and that's too new agey for me. I definitely am extremely spiritual and extremely believe in energy, but only because I know it profoundly inside of me and I've experienced it. So I hate believing in anything that I haven't experienced. Okay, I don't hate it, but I do have a hard time to do that. But for me, I'll tell you what, for me, the Akashic Records is. I believe that everything is made of energy, which, science has proven that. And energy never dies. It always transforms or changes. So thoughts, memories, people, bodies, everything is energy. And through thought and intention, you can actually access information and energy simply by, I like to describe it as if there's this Akasha realm, which is like a big freeway with a billion cars running around on it. And you stand up on the freeway and say, hi, I want to know about my grandma, and I want to know about my relationship, and everything's like and organizes. This is
Wow.
my absurd definition of the Akashic Records. And then I can access it. So it's kind of like looking into a very large database that's bigger than your own brain. It's connecting to a larger consciousness, which is floating above everything. It's kind of like that sixth sense you have sometimes, or when somebody walks in the room from far away, or sometimes you think about someone and they call you right at that instant. There is, because even in the description you said that I know that everything is interconnected. Yeah. We are all interconnected energetically, and it's almost like creating an intention and creating a direction allows for things to flow into that space. God, that was a very complicated definition.
Oh, but I loved it. I loved it. And can I ask a couple more questions?
Yeah, of course.
Because I think one of the things that comes up for me is I'm trying to understand, is this like a book? I've heard some people refer to it like a book, but or would it be more like a big hive brain? Because when I think about us all being connected, I think there's ways in which we're all tapped into the same big brain, and we just don't know it. And one of the scientific examples that comes up for me is like the invention of the light bulb or the telephone. There was like always multiple patents going into, and then somebody else is at the front of the line and gets credit for inventing it. But somehow or another, these ideas pop up in the human experience, and then they get materialized. I don't know if that was too woo, but do you understand at least what my question is?
Yeah, I understand about the first part, which is about this idea of like the records. Also, because my family was evangelical Christian. For me, I kind of cringe at the idea of like Moses or God standing up there with a big book, and all the records, and this visual idea that there's somebody up there. I personally have a hard time to believe this.
Yeah, I think that's why I was allergic to the whole idea, because I was raised by a right-wing Christian cult, and the Bible was pounded into me. So I was like, no, I want something that's dynamic, living, breathing, not some ancient thing that's kind of chaining me to the past.
Yeah, it kind of felt like this Day of the Dead, or day of when you arrive to heaven, and then they're going to pull out these big records of all the bad things you've ever done. And so when I heard about that, like the Akashic Records, I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. But then what I am realizing, and also having a lot of my understanding of it, is when I actually go into this channeled space and I ask, because I like to get answers for myself. And what it is that time and space don't exist in energy. So we believe in linear time because we have this sensation of separation, and we've created the idea of time, but that's a whole nother story. But except that, so in energy, there is no time and space. So meaning that you can access anything at any time, whether it's past, future, or present,
Right.
because things are almost running in parallel time, which is super hard for us to understand, and yet because we think in linear time.
It blows every circuit in my brain, and yet I know that we've got the field of quantum physics, which is actually saying that that's true.
I mean, in the Akashic Records, it's also connected to the idea of like manifestation, things like that we we can create already our future now by becoming our future, things like that. But with the Akashic Records, what it does is that it gives you the past, or it gives you the past and future, it gives you the future possibilities based on where your energetic self is right now, knowing that things shift and constantly move at all times. Right. So if someone comes into the Akashic Records with me, when I say when they come in, that just means that, okay, we're in that channeled space where I'm connected, and I say, okay, you can ask any questions, which maybe we'll have to explain that about a bit better how that works. Okay. But when they're there, the answers aren't going to be like, in 20 years, you're going to see a tall, dark, handsome man who's going to propose to you by saying these 4 words. You know, it's okay. It's going to be a little bit more energetic, in the sense you might say, hey, when am I going to meet my life partner? And based on the energy and where you're at right now, it might say, okay, this is what needs to shift for that to happen. Or it might say, I actually did a session with someone, and they were wanting to know when their life partner was coming. And what they showed me in the image is just her reaching out all her arms, all her legs, and just like, I'm so needy. And what it said was, hey, you've got to tend to your needs first. And then once that happens, then it's going to arrive. You know, so that's just an example. So they tell you kind of what needs to shift energetically for what you want to happen. If that's the question, if that's one of the questions that you're asking.
Can you ask that makes questions sense? That are not for you personally, but maybe more for the planet?
Yeah, you can. I did ask multiple times, actually, for myself when I go in, because I use it all the time. I have my own private space, and I've asked about what's going on with the planet, what's going on with our global consciousness right now, what is needing to happen, and it gives such a larger perspective. It's like you step out of that little brain that just sees something that's really small, and it's like, woo-hoo, and then it can give the whole perspective on what is actually happening what's happening energetically with the planet, with the population, what's going on, and what has to shift for things to heal. You know,
what did they tell you, Carly?
I knew you were going to ask me that, and I've asked that like a few multiple years ago. So now I'm gonna have to remember.
It's a moving target. Things shift.
It's moving, but yeah, I mean, there was definitely what came up was that we are the planet. We are the reflection of who we have been in the inside. That we have created this inner separation, and that we have completely forgotten who we are, where we come from, and why we're here. And that it's normal that there is a reflection everywhere that feels catastrophic and chaotic, because within us there is this deep longing of re-belonging. And you know, it goes back to the story of separation again and again.
Almost feels like a mother talking to, you know. If I feel a lot of love in that message.
Yeah, there's definitely no, at least with what I've felt, that there's so little, there's no judgment. And it's, you know, there's none of this like, you're destroying us, you're killing us, it's just because it speaks from the idea that we are all the one and the same. So one and the same, meaning every life is all interconnected. So there is no, you're doing this to somebody else. Yeah. it's a lot of times it's just about how to come back into union.
Wow. That's very inspiring, actually.
Mm.
Yeah. How, since you are able to tap into this for yourself, how do you feel it has shaped your life?
Um, oh, that's so funny. I got slightly emotional when you said that.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I guess, you know, one thing that's been so powerful is when I go into that space, I feel this overwhelming sensation of love. And I know that I am part of something that is just that I'm surrounded by more than myself, that is so much love, and that is just, you know, and it's like all those moments that I'm in like confusion about this or that, it just it steps me out, and it shows me from a point of just this larger perspective of helping me to understand things. um a lot of times, you know, I mean, I even use it for my business, I use it for my relationship. In my business, for example, I'll be like getting stuck over the copy of what something should be and how I should write it, and then I'll go in and then they'll tell me what the energy is that that needs to be. Or even with the Akashic Records the other day, I was like, I wrote all this stuff, but I'm not sure how to, you know, I come in as this, you know, like little dumb girl, like, and I don't really know how to write it. And is the ostrich picture a good picture or not, you know, like on my website. And then what it said to me is like, you need to talk to the people who are already going to need this, you know, like you have to bring them into your energetic field as you write it.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay. You know, it's just, it's not going to tell me like, okay, well, you need to put, you know, you need to write this exactly. Although occasionally it does actually, you know, give some actual words and things how to write. But a lot of times it just helps me shift the whole perspective. Um, this morning I meditated on my ex, and like, you know, I'm not going to go too detailed on live, but it's just I was feeling really confused about which direction to go, and it just gave me a flash of feeling him as a child.
Hmm.
And you know, I got this image of him and I got the sensation and the emotion of him. It was like they just showed me who he really was.
Hmm.
and and that was so powerful for me to see that, when I'm stuck in like, well, he's not this and he's not that and blah 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 blah, it just takes you out and gives you a larger perspective that comes from a space of just deep understanding. um
Do you have a concept of guides or a higher power?
yeah, that's I get really a little confused about that because there's people, I just learned the term of what I might be called, which is not clairvoyant, it's claircognizant and clairsentient. So I guess that means, yeah, I was like, cool, I have a name. I can call myself something. So claircognizant, I guess it's like you get the information clearly, and then sentient, that you feel. So the way I perceive things, the way intuitive or guidance comes through is, sometimes images that I see in my mind, and then emotions and the words. Some people will actually see like a spirit or like the form of a spirit or something outside. When I actually feel, tap into people or things like that, I'll feel their presence, and occasionally I'll get like a kind of image of what they might look like, but it's not as like some other clairvoyant people can just like, they're wearing purple, they're sitting there right in the corner and they're looking at me.
Oh,
Of course
those
they're
are
wearing
remote
purple.
viewers.
What?
Those are remote viewers. They're different entirely.
Oh, but anyway, as far as guides,
Have you ever known somebody who could do that? Who could actually tell you
um
the room you were in, like a class? I have a friend who actually could tell me how many people were in the room, what their hair color was, and he pulled out two names.
wow.
And he
That's pretty
wasn't
good.
there. He was about, 200
Mm,
miles away.
yeah, not
Yeah.
bad. Yeah.
It's called remote viewing, and I didn't.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's kind of it's just a different psychic gift. And I think we all
Hmm.
have different psychic gifts.
Yeah. And oh, so you actually asked about what I
Higher
think
power
about
and God.
guides and higher powers.
And
Okay.
and
So,
while we're at it, let's throw in angels, because although I don't identify with angels, because again, the whole Christian cult thing, but some people who are watching this might, and I'm just wondering, I'm not coming at you like you have the final say on this, but I'm wanting to know how you hold.
yeah. So I actually did ask this in my Akashic record meditation the other day. I was like, well, in massage, there's all these people, they have like their guide that, like I hear all these people, they're like, oh yeah, my guide's name is blah blah blah, and he's like this. And I'm like, why don't I have a guide that seems that clear? You
Oh,
know? And I know, I was like, I want a cool guide that's like named Michael, or and or is an archangel. um so I don't, I'm not saying that people don't have that. For me, what came up in the meditation is that, once again, this whole like we are one thing, and I saw multiple light beings, and they said that it was easier for us to be able to place a name and a face and an image and a personality around one, to be able to support us in certain areas of our lives.
ah,
But in reality, there is the light. I got the word light beings, and so I'm using this word lately, the light beings, because they have, like everything, being that everything is interconnection, they actually have connection to everything. So it's not like you can just go to this one guide for that one thing. In reality, they can connect to everything because everything is interconnected. But sometimes it's supportive to have a guide or a particular guide for this or that, because then you can really tap more into that particular thing that they might be specialized in.
uh-huh.
But for me, being that I haven't experienced the sensation of someone showing up, that is what I got in my meditation, that I didn't necessarily need a
Yeah,
particular person.
yeah.
And so when I give somatic massages, for example, um, I've been tapping into, they told me, because I was feeling really tired lately, they
Yes.
said the problem is that I was fusing my, this is going a little technical, I was connecting to the higher self of the person getting a massage and my own higher self. And I was like fusing the two. And so I was getting information from the body, but I was also getting drained at the same time.
Oh,
And
right.
and so now what they said that I should do is to connect, keep, every time I start going low, connect to the light and just surround myself with light beams.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think I really felt the presence of light beings when I got in an accident, a car accident. I don't know if we want to go there, but
Oh,
uh,
is this what opened you up to this? Because
um,
you would not be the first person that I've talked to who opened up to psychic gifts because on the other side of a traumatic event,
hmm,
especially
um,
an accident, a car wreck.
it wasn't necessarily that event that turned me on to it. Although just the other day when I was checking in, okay, who is who? Like, who is this, a guide? Is this a light being? Is this the Akashic Records?
Mhm.
When I got the sense of the light being, I was remembering, I dove back into this car accident that I had, where a car ran into the right side of my car at the passenger level. My son was sitting right behind the passenger level. The car went like jammed into the passenger side just in front of where my son was sitting. My car did an entire flip and landed back on its feet. But when I was doing that flip, I felt completely surrounded by light beams. Like it's so clear in my body how that feels.
Yeah.
And when I was asking about that, I got that flash of that and I started bawling and realizing, just like, oh my God, thank you so much. You saved my son and me. And it wasn't the time to die. Um,
I
So,
remember a time when I was driving down the road, there was a lot of water on the road, and um, I lost control of my vehicle, and I
mm,
started to go into a spin right on the road. I was just spinning around, and I couldn't remember what I was supposed to do to come out of a spin. I couldn't remember, what do I brake now? Do I turn the wheel in the other direction? My mind went a total blank. So I let go of everything and I just called out for help. I said, please help me. And all of a sudden, the car stopped and it was in the correct direction. I was just like, thank you.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I relate to the idea of being able to call on help when you need it.
Yeah. So it feels like for me, the Akashic realm is a space of, it feels more like a space of guidance and wisdom and information.
Yeah.
And then the light beings, not that it's that separate, but the light beings for me almost feels like this source of infinite love that really surrounds me in multiple,
Yeah.
um, as multiple beings, and really protects me,
Yeah.
and supports me.
I
Yeah.
definitely have. I've worked with psychics who accessed my guides before I knew how to do it. And my initial conversation with my guides, and for me it is a
Mm,
plural, and I do refer to them as guides, was just so much love.
mm,
It's just like, oh, this is so unconditional. And it's just right there. Like, yes, we care about you. And, you may not be aware of us, but we're around all the time. It was just, and I definitely, they is my favorite thing to say. They're messing with me again when something happens, and I could just tell everything is so synergistic and it's just arriving right on time to help illustrate something that I need to learn. And, you know, I laugh. I laugh. Sometimes I get a little upset. I'm like, really? Really? That's not funny. Yeah.
yeah, there's really this thing that's been really important for me in my life that sometimes I'll forget, is to walk with one hand holding the high or whatever it is, that I think it's actually from yoga. It's called Ishvara Pranidhana, I believe, Ishvara Pranidhana. It's where you walk with one hand holding the hand of the world and the other one holding the hand of God, whatever your version of God might be.
Right.
And so often it's like, I want something to happen, I need something to happen, and I just put it out there. Hey, I need this to happen. And then I totally let go. And the more I've trusted, like, it happens all the time, like from finding a place to live in 3 days, from making, I need to make $10,000 this month. Okay. For me, that was a lot of money at the time.
Yeah.
Um, like, hey, I need to meet the perfect person that's going to tell me that they have a great space where I can do a dance party. It, like, literally everything all the time is, now it's just like, I intentionalize it, I ask, and I let go, and it happens.
Beautiful.
So yeah, it's cool to be able to work with them like that. It's a huge support.
I think for me, it's like realizing that you didn't come here alone. You're never alone. You won't leave here alone. This is a group effort. Whatever it is we're doing in these lifetimes, it has a lot of meaning. Um, and I know there's a lot of people who feel like their life doesn't matter. And I
Yeah,
think
there's a I sorry, I feel like there's a message coming through to the people actually that are listening.
wonderful.
um and it's about belonging, um and that each one of you belongs here, as every other element of this world belongs here, from every tree to every insect to every flower, every part belongs. And you also have such an important role to play here, that anytime you ever doubt yourself that what you're doing isn't right, that what you're doing isn't good enough, that what you're doing, who you're being, isn't enough, you are part of that. You are so important here. And you have to know that and learn that and really connect to that importance, because we really want you here. You are here for a purpose.
Mm,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that, and thank them for that.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
sometimes think of the human animal as like a big compound eye, and each one of us is one of those facets of the compound eye. So the whole picture, um, what it is we need to know and do and be, can't arrive if each facet of that eye is engaged. Um, I just, for me, can you tell I wanted to be an entomologist when I was a kid?
Wait, can you further explain the eye thing? I'm a little confused.
Well, compound eye. So the way an insect's eye
Oh
has
yeah, because you're an insect
I
fanatic.
should have totally explained this. I'm sorry. I just assumed everybody knows what a compound eye is. No wonder people are giving me dumb looks when I talk about this. So the compound eye is a whole bunch. Just imagine a million different cameras, and each one has a vision of reality. And then that goes into the central processing center of the insect's brain, and they get an image of reality. But it's all these little cameras. Whereas for us, we just have one big camera.
Oh.
Yeah. And I just, I was listening to Jane Houston the other day, and she was talking about how the universe is getting to know itself through us. And I loved something she said: don't bore God.
When you say don't bore God, it totally just makes me think of when we step outside of ourselves and we see us getting so worked up about all those little tiny things. And then, he's looking down, and I love this phrase too, the one that says, man said, I've got a plan, and God laughed, right?
Oh, tell us.
That's the whole joke. Yeah, it's funny because it's so easy to get this sensation of separate, that I have to do everything and figure everything out on my own, and these are my only resources that I've got, and I can't see any bigger picture than beyond what's in front of my nose. That's what I love about the Akashic Records, is they give you a much bigger picture of what is possible.
And people limit themselves by the past, like what? Oh, well, I have so many times when I'm working with my clients and coaching them to stop saying I am this. No, that's what you used to do, or that's maybe all you've seen so far. But possibility has to be born from a place of what can we do that's new in
and
ourselves.
what I'm even discovering is that you can actually shift your view of the past too, even now in the present, which is, it's kind of like a new wow thing to me, in the sense you can totally shift your relationship to the past, and that will change who you are now in the present, and the steps that you'll make in the future, that you are not forced to be stuck into the pattern of your past. It's not only about just dealing with trauma, but it's even really shifting the mindset about what we choose to remember, what we choose to take with us as the energy of the past.
Yeah, I've been doing something like that in EMDR, where a traumatic life event from when I was about 4 years old. Just when I realized that I didn't come here alone, that there have always been the light spirits that you talk about, to go back to a traumatic event and just connect with the light spirits that were there, so that I don't feel like I was completely alone and abandoned in that traumatic moment. And so then when something triggers that trauma, I now have the visualization of being held by somebody that loved me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, it's definitely something I've gotten to explore in this past week of, I also had this very traumatic childhood, And so for me, all I remembered was the difficult, traumatic parts of my childhood, and going into a deep kind of a trance-ish, no, yeah, okay. I went back into the Akashic Records and asked them some information about my childhood. And I actually got images of where I played with my father, where he hugged me, where, you know, like he built a fort for me. And so they were showing me all these images, like so many flashes of all these moments where I was cared for. And so my belief as this child who arrived from picking for the crumbs of love and being the abandoned child that I've identified myself with for most of my life, having to deal with fixing the trauma, also has a part of me now who is like, hey, actually, I am loved. I did have someone who had moments that cared about me. And so when I go into that, like you were saying, yeah, when I go into that trigger that's like, I'm abandoned, my partner's abandoning me, I can pull up another part of my past. It's like, hey, you're also cared for, you're also loved. So yeah, it's just interesting to see how we can shift even the past in a way, and what we remember, what stays with us. And what can,
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad, you and I have known each other for a while. We've talked about other topics, and I'm just really enjoying sharing this aspect of our path. It's really beautiful and inspiring and heart opening. I'm wondering, before we wrap up, could we see if there are any other messages that might want to come through for people who are tuning in right now?
Sure, let's ask. So sometimes what I like to do during this, I'll see if anything comes through, but maybe just while I'm seeing if something comes through, just taking a few deep breaths and just really kind of connecting to like, hey, what might I be needing right now, or where am I at? And I'll ask if there's anything for the people watching today with us.
Yeah. I've got a specific question coming up.
Okay, go for it.
About, for a lot of people, they've been sheltered in place. They might have had fewer connections, and now the world is opening up, and they might feel some confusion. So wondering how each individual person can tap into their own wisdom about that, or their own guidance on that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a big play between this enticement to freedom and the fear of, is it really okay? Am I safe? Am I being safe for others? There's so many fears actually that I'm feeling into, that there's a lot of fear of also what's going to happen. Are we going to go back? Is my freedom still going to be limited? What is the new normal going to look like? And even going back to a supposed normal is also fearful, because we know that that can be taken away at any moment. So there are multiple fears and multiple doubts that are still here. And there's a lot of, it's also a very vulnerable moment, because in this state, we're trying to find a place where we can hold on to, and what that feels anchoring. And a lot of times that's just listening to multiple news, multiple information. And what it's saying is to be careful with what you listen to, and where, and what you decide to put into your mind, and what you decide to nurture yourself with, and what kind of information. It's really important also to take this moment with the time and the ease that is needed for each one of us to feel safe, and for each one of us to feel aligned with what's okay for you. be careful with listening to everyone else's information. It's really important, especially in this time, because we have given away a lot of our own authority and our own inner knowing, to come back to that, to come back to step in, to say, hey, where am I at now today? What is it I need? What feels okay for me? What feels safe for me? And the new normal is going to come, but there's never a normal, because life is always impermanent, it's always shifting. And the only thing that we can do is to be okay with each moment as it shifts, and each second as it shifts. So really the invitation is to really step into the moment where you are, the moment of today, tomorrow, and really step into it and really savor it, and try to take that moment as an opportunity to check in fully with, hey, am I here? Am I present? And what's going on for me right now in this second? And can I trust myself? Can I trust myself even a little bit more? And how can I learn to trust myself and to trust my inner guidance?
Wow.
Okay, yeah.
I, especially towards the end there, I started to get chills. I started to get choked up, because that is the universal lesson, isn't it? Always about us being in this moment and not projecting into the past or the future. Yeah. And I love that one. Yeah. They're like, oh, is it going to be normal again? And nothing's ever normal, because it's always changing. That really resonated with me. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And we can't really hear our guidance if we're in a place of fear.
Yeah, and there's really peace in the 1 second of stillness, of just that, when we're in this forward motion of just taking the 1 second of stillness, and there's a space of peace in that stillness, even if it's a 1 second stillness. And then in that space, there's nothing that's wrong.
Is it okay to ask another question that I feel might be kind of a universal question?
Sure, let me see if it works.
Okay. This is a
roll
big,
my eyes back.
this is a big one.
Okay.
And it's really about the pain that people are feeling right now with the political polarizations and divisions. Now, sometimes this comes down to family members, friends, neighbors, even lovers, spouses. I certainly know that I have clients who are, they may even not be on the same political side of certain issues with their wife or husband. And I'm just wondering, is there a message around how the human race can heal this really amplified level of polarization that we're experiencing right now?
Okay, I'm asking. Big question. Yeah. Just take a few breaths while I figure it out.
I will. I'll
Hold
take
on.
as many breaths as you need. This was a big one. I know that.
Okay, hold on. Let me ask you. Okay, what's coming up first is a really big emotion. There's so much, just really tapping into the pain. There's so much healing needed. And the first step is really acknowledging the pain. There's been a rejection of even seeing that we are in pain. There's been a continual movement towards putting behind us what is a closed book and moving forward and seeing something, what's the next opportunity. But there is so much buried underneath that has to be opened and looked at, and it will take a little while, and it will be painful to see where we're at. And a lot of people are going through pain, but just know that pain is a process. It's not an ending. Pain is the process to be able to see and to feel and to be able to place the bandages on the wounds there is an acknowledgement of hate, that there's an acknowledgement of this sense of rejection for all that we don't know and all we don't recognize as ourselves. It's a process. It's happening. There's not an immediate how do you say, hold on, I'm getting a little lost here.
Okay. I'm really getting big chills right now.
There's okay, what's coming up is really this sensation that it's not going to be one little issue of, like, okay, now it's Black Lives Matter, before it was women, and there's going to be a lot of things that are going to show up, and people showing that they're in pain because that dam has been opened, and that's going to allow people to finally express the centuries of pain that they've gone through.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's not over yet, but that we have to pass through that process to be able to heal. And the really important thing right now is also being able to hold each other and to support each other as much as possible in this process.
Okay. That brought tears to my eyes.
Yeah. There is really a space of being able to sit with the pain and to allow it to move through without holding on to it.
Yeah, I got it. We're in it. It's like, think about it. It's like the birth canal. I was getting ready to birth that baby. Let's hurry up and get it. It's like, oh no, there's more coming.
Take a couple deep breaths.
That was huge, Carly. My body started to vibrate. It's like I could feel that you said there's huge emotion. I could just feel it coming through.
Yeah. As Carly speaking now, it's one thing that has been really consoling for me is learning how to be part of community and part of friendships that feel whole, that feel supportive.
Yeah.
I know that a process for me personally is also being able to I felt a lot of shame around having need, and my need was like, because I'm hurting, I have need. And so there was shame around actually the fact of hurting, of being in pain. And I think there's a process also for me of finding who are those people I can feel safe around to be able to be held in a space of pain or hurt. Yeah. I think it's important that we can find people that we can hold each other, we can hold each other's hands. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, you made a believer out of me today. Because I'm very empathic, and I could feel that moving through you, and it blew me away. Like, okay, this is real. And I loved the answers that came through, because they're so timeless and universal, and really resonate with my spiritual path, which and I've got to tell you something, as an activist and an author, I felt like that message about there's more pain to come was really an important thing for me to hear, even for the book that I'm birthing right now, to not try to hurry up and usher us into a place of resolution, but to create space also for the hurting.
And that was a surprise for me too, to hear that. I'm like, oh man, but it makes sense. It totally makes sense,
Yeah, it was like, oh no, that thing, that was the truth. I could feel it everywhere.
Yeah.
Truth.
Yeah.
And it helped me slow my roll, because I'm always trying to get to the healing, and now we're done and everything's great.
Yeah, and what I find what's interesting is that it feels very, very global. And I think, that it's not for nothing that we are in the internet age where everything feels also materially interconnected, that we have actually created the manifestation of our own interconnectedness through the internet too, and I just think that it's the right time that we're also in this space of acknowledgement of a global thing that needs to be healed, and to be able to move forward. And everything is that reflection. We're all freaked out about the environment. Well, what about and people? And it's all the same thing.
It is all the same thing. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Carly, I'm looking at the time, and I'm gonna have to.
I don't know. Yeah.
I actually have to get on to working with a client here in a few minutes.
Oh, geez.
And
Okay.
it was when we entered that space where you brought in that last answer, it was just so timeless for me, and there was nothing else.
Yeah.
I wonder, for you, how is it? Do you get a sense that something is speaking through you?
Yeah, actually, because I work with the body so much, I notice a different area of my body feels that it's opening up. And sometimes I'll ask, is this me or is this coming through? And then I'll notice when it's me, I'll feel more tension here. And then when it's coming through, I feel like an opening here at the top of my head. And I literally like feel like a sort of pressure coming through the top of my head. And then I also feel like a kind of melty sensation in my body. Like I'll get right in the beginning, I'll get like a wave of like a melt. And then I know that I'm there, and occasionally I'll check in. I'll be like, hey, are you guys there? Or am I there? And then I'll get a yes. And then occasionally, or no, if I'm like too brainy or something, I'm not in the space. And then another thing is sometimes when I might double check myself, because sometimes I might be starting to add on. And then I say, wait, hold on, let me check. Is this coming from me? No. Okay, hold on. I gotta get back and let it come through. So yeah, I do definitely feel the difference between when it's coming from me and when it's not. And when I write and I'll ask a question like, it's like a cheesy little question, and then they'll respond with this like really elaborate, beautiful language. I'm like, okay, that's not completely me.
But I understand. There's no separation. So how can people reach you? I know there's going to be people that are like, hey, I want to ask her some questions. So I will be posting this below, but I just think it's good to also say it out loud.
I do Akashic Records readings for people, and I also do I'm actually trying to find out with the Akashic Records where we want to go with this, because it's very different from a traditional, like, I'm going to market you an Akashic reading. I honestly feel like if there are things that people are dealing with that they feel they need clarity or guidance around, or even how to just connect to their own higher wisdom, I feel like a reading is important. But you don't have to jump full speed into it. I also do a free intro call for anyone who's just wants to ask me some questions about it. It's about a 15-minute call. You can even text me and say, hey, I want a 15-minute call. And that's on my website. They can look up on my website, carlycocreation.com/Akashic Records.
Yes, and creation is with a K, right?
No, it's Carly Co, CARLYKO, creation. Like how facebook.com/Akashic Records. And I felt like there was something important to say, and I just forgot it. Oh, so yeah, I do these sessions mainly online, and I'm really surprised and not surprised to see how incredibly strong they are online, just because we are working with energy. So it's one and the same thing. We are totally connected, and then I also, I record everything for people, and so they don't have to take notes. And the sessions I've had with people have really been pivotal, really life-changing. A lot of people have been questioning about direction or people, and it just gives such a larger perspective.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you, Carly.
Mm.
I just found this to be so moving and inspiring, and I'm going to be thinking about it for days. Uh, just because I was able to find things in what came through that were really instructive to me on my
And
own.
also you have your own connections, so I hope that you connect even more with your guides and your guidance.
I connect with my guides all the time, but
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's very important that we tap into each other's wisdom,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we are one,
Mm.
and each one of us brings a unique way of pulling that through. Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
So thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, everyone who's been watching.
Yes, thank you. And I haven't mastered the whole how to answer questions on Facebook while I'm posting live to Facebook. So if any of you were frustrated by that, PM me, and maybe I'll figure it out.
Yeah, I guess or if any questions come up, or
Yeah.
maybe it's better to contact me, or maybe I can, if there's a question that you can't respond to or something, I'm happy to try and respond.
Totally. I'll make sure all your contact details
are
posted.
Okay.
So I can reach you.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank
Sending
you,
you all the
Veronica.
love, sweetheart.
Mwah. Okay.
You too.
Bye, beautiful.